There's a plant growing in your backyard that fed Neolithic Europe before wheat even existed. A plant that ancient physicians prescribed as medication 3,000 years ago. In fact, you've probably even pulled it from your garden and thrown it away. It's this: lamb's quarters, also known as white goosefoot. And this is powerful stuff. 1 cup contains 464 milligrams of calcium. That's 50 times more calcium than in spinach. Yet, federal legislation permits its seizure and destruction. This is the story of Chenopodium album and how a mother grain became America's most misunderstood weed. The most striking evidence comes from Niederwil, a Neolithic settlement in Switzerland. Archaeologists discovered a ceramic vessel containing 54,000 seeds. This was their primary food reserve, representing weeks of sustenance carefully preserved through winter. While the pyramids were rising in Egypt, Europeans were storing this plant by the tens of thousands. And this reliance persisted through the Iron Age. The Toland man consumed it in his final meal. Multiple bog bodies from peat swamps across the continent show lamb's quarters in their digestive contents. These weren't famine foods. These were dietary staples. By the late Middle Ages, lamb's quarters served as the primary green vegetable across Europe. Across the Atlantic, a parallel story unfolded. The eastern agricultural complex of North America included Chenopodium berlandieri as a foundational crop. Archaeological evidence places domestication at 3,000 years before present, 1,500 years before maize reached the region. The morphological changes tell the story. Wild Chenopodium produces thick, reticulated seed coats. Domesticated varieties show reduced thickness under 20 micrometers with smooth surfaces. This is the signature of deliberate human selection, generation after generation. Indigenous farmers developed the Maslin technique, mixing seeds of different ripening times. Maygrass matured first. Little barley followed. Chenopodium came last. 3 harvests from 3 seasons, insurance against crop failure. The system thrived for millennia until maize arrived around the 800s. Chenopodium album belongs to the family Amaranthaceae. Its genome reveals why it succeeded across continents. The plant is an allohexaploid, possessing 6 sets of chromosomes from ancient hybridization. This genetic complexity grants extreme adaptability. The genus name derives from Greek. Chen means goose. Podion means little foot. The leaves are rhomboid to ovate, shaped like waterfowl feet. The species epithet, album, means white, referencing the distinctive coating on young growth. That coating serves survival. Under magnification, the mealy surface resolves into microscopic vesicles that reflect solar radiation, reduce water loss, and prevent fungal infection. Each plant produces up to 75,000 seeds, viable for decades in soil. This reproductive capacity explains both its agricultural success and its eventual classification as an enemy. Then comes the nutritional revelation that exposes the depth of what was lost. In 2014, a scientist published a study in the journal Preventing Chronic Disease. The research developed a classification scheme for powerhouse fruits and vegetables, ranking 47 produce items based on their density of 17 crucial nutrients. Lamb's quarters wasn't included in the published rankings, not because it lacked nutrients, because it's unavailable in commercial markets. But when the same methodology is applied to lamb's quarters, the results are devastating to the narrative of modern nutrition. The plant scores higher than kale, the vegetable that sparked a billion-dollar health food industry. Per 100 grams of raw leaves, lamb's quarters delivers 11,000 international units of vitamin A. Kale, the modern nutritional champion, provides 4,600. That's 2.5 times higher. Calcium content ranges from 309 to 800 milligrams, depending on soil conditions. Whole milk contains approximately 120 milligrams per 100 grams. At maximum expression, lamb's quarters provide 6 times more calcium than milk, the beverage an entire industry promotes for bone health. Vitamin C ranges from 80 to 155 milligrams, depending on growing conditions. Spinach contains 8.4. The plant delivers nearly 20 times the vitamin C concentration of its cultivated replacement. But the revelation that shatters industrial agriculture's nutritional logic concerns protein. Lamb's quarters contains all 10 essential amino acids humans cannot synthesize. This makes it a complete protein source, a characteristic normally associated with animal products or carefully combined plant foods. The lysine content sits at 5.1 to 6.4% by weight. Most cereal grains are deficient in lysine, the limiting amino acid that determines protein quality. Lamb's quarters provides what wheat, corn, and rice cannot. The taste? Food scientists who study wild edibles describe it as mild, with a pillowy texture when steamed. No bitterness even in mature leaves. Superior to spinach in both flavor and preparation versatility. Here is the sobering arithmetic. The most nutritious leafy green documented in North American flora grows freely in all 50 states. It requires no irrigation, no fertilizer, no pest control. It produces continuously when harvested correctly. It contains superior concentrations of calcium, iron, vitamin A, vitamin C, and complete protein compared to cultivated alternatives. And it is classified as a noxious weed by federal and state regulatory agencies. In the Indian subcontinent, Ayurvedic texts Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita document medicinal applications spanning millennia. Called Bathua, it appears in winter markets across Punjab as a commercial crop. The tradition persists unbroken, from ancient texts to modern practice. In Mexico, it belongs to the quellit group of edible greens integral to the milpa system, growing spontaneously among maize and beans. The medicinal applications were precise. The leaf oil contains ascaridole at 15.5% concentration, functioning as an anthelmintic that paralyzes intestinal parasites. Pedanius Dioscorides documented these uses in De Materia Medica during the 1st century. The roots contain saponins that produce lather for washing. The plant yielded dyes, green from young shoots, gold from mature growth. Seeds could be eaten raw, roasted, or ground into flour. Storage capabilities exceeded most available seeds. For 5,000 years, this versatility sustained civilizations across 3 continents. Then, in the span of 3 centuries, the entire system collapsed. The first blow came from commerce. In 827, Arab traders introduced spinach to Sicily from ancient Persia. By the 11th century, Moors brought it to Spain. The great agronomist Ibn al-Awwam called it Ra'iz al-Bukul, the chieftain of leafy greens. Spinach possessed commercial advantages unrelated to nutrition: larger leaves and smoother appearance. No mealy coating. By the 14th century, it reached England and France and gained popularity. Spinach could be cultivated predictably, planted in rows and harvested mechanically. Lamb's quarters grew uncontrollably, free wherever humans tilled soil. By 1600, spinach had replaced lamb's quarters across Europe, not from superior nutrition, but through market economics and social status aligned against the older plant. The second erasure began during World War II. In 1944, a British team at Rothamsted Experimental Station developed 2,4-D, a weed killer. The original intent was agricultural warfare, starving Nazi Germany by destroying potato crops. But the plan failed. Potatoes proved to be a hardy crop. But researchers recognized something else. 2,4-D killed dicots, which are broadleaf plants, while leaving monocots, grasses like wheat and corn, unharmed. In 1945, the American Chemical Paint Company marketed it as Weed 1. Commercial release came in 1946. For the first time, farmers could spray over growing crops and kill weeds within rows without crop damage. Contemporary reports called it a miracle. Manual weeding consumed enormous labor, and 2,4-D eliminated that requirement. The herbicide was registered in the United States in 1948. Over 1,500 products containing 2,4-D exist today. Low cost keeps it among the most widely used herbicides globally. Lamb's quarters became a primary target. Its 75,000 seeds per plant made it formidable in corn and soybean fields. It appeared first on tilled farmland, exactly where farmers needed clean seedbeds. The plant that fed humans for 5 millennia was now crop interference. And it didn't end there. The final erasure came through legislation. The Federal Seed Act of 1939 established purity standards. Any seed lot containing prohibited contaminants required labeling or could not be sold in interstate commerce. President Gerald Ford signed the Federal Noxious Weed Act in 1975. The legislation gave the Secretary of Agriculture authority to designate plants as noxious weeds. It prohibited movement in interstate commerce, except under permit. The Secretary received authority to inspect, seize, and destroy products, to quarantine areas, to cooperate with state agencies in eradication. The justification cited $5 billion in annual crop damage from Department of Agriculture estimates. The calculation excluded any value weeds might provide. Lamb's quarters didn't appear on the primary federal list initially. State regulations filled gaps. Multiple states classified it as secondary noxious weed or prohibited contaminant. commercial cultivation became legally problematic. In Canada, the Weed Seeds Order identified Chenopodium album as one of the most widespread weeds in imported crop seeds. A 2010 update continued tightening purity standards. While industrial agriculture eliminated lamb's quarters from commercial farmland, the plant persisted where different systems prevailed. The Himalayan region maintains domesticated land races as primary grain crop. Northern India grows it commercially as bathua in Punjab markets. In Mexico, it remains essential in rural areas where traditional intercropping survived. The irony is precise. Where industrial agriculture never penetrated, lamb's quarters thrives as cultivated crop. Yet the plant's botanical distribution reveals absurdity. Chenopodium album grows in all 50 states. It requires no irrigation, no fertilizer, and no pest control. It appears wherever humans disturb soil. While industrial agriculture worked to eliminate lamb's quarters, two separate movements began rediscovering what had been lost. The first came from oncology labs. In 2009, researchers in India tested lamb's quarters extracts on breast cancer cells. The results showed 94% growth inhibition. 7 years later, a study in China demonstrated the same compounds could trigger programmed death in lung cancer cells. By 2024, medical journals were publishing evidence of liver protection, validating claims that appeared in Ayurvedic texts 3,000 years earlier. The second movement came from restaurant kitchens. James Beard award-winning chef Alan Burgo documented something remarkable. He supplied a 120-seat restaurant with fresh lamb's quarters throughout an entire growing season using nothing but a 10-foot compost pile. The technique was simple. The plant craves nitrogen-rich, disturbed soil. Create the right conditions and it produces continuously. At farmers markets, when labeled as wild spinach, the plant sells for $8 per pound. Yet, it remains absent from stores and seed catalogs. The regulatory framework persists unchanged. For 5,000 years, Chenopodium album sustained civilizations. Yet spinach marketing convinced Europeans that appearance indicated nutrition. Chemical companies convinced farmers that unsown plants represented interference. Federal legislation created mechanisms prohibiting commercial cultivation. You cannot purchase it at stores, but you can learn to recognize the goosefoot leaves, the mealy coating. You can harvest it from your yard where it grows without permission. If you liked this story, then you'll definitely like this one on Wildline. Click here to check it out.